All right. Wow. Welcome, everyone. I'm so grateful you're here. Um, my name's Drew. I'm the Executive Director of Bullying Recovery Resource Center. We're a 501c3 in Denver, Colorado. We defend bullied children and help rebuild lives. We've been doing that. We're in our fourth year. Um, we've helped over 150 families across Colorado and actually across the United States as well. Um, We're going to be watching a very powerful documentary tonight. Bully came out in 2011. Lee Hirsch he was the director as well as the producer, and it follows 5 cases of youths. I can't say that have been bullied and have endured bullying. Um, I watched it again this week. I had to get a box of tissues, so I'm just laying that out there. Um, Probably everybody on here knows how big of a problem bullying is. The latest statistic I found is 49% of children grades 4 through 12 have been bullied at least once. And 1 in 4, that's up from last year, it was 1 in 5 last year. 1 in 4 young people have been bullied in the past year. Unfortunately, our services are very needed. We've been very busy this week with the kids going back to school. It's not always good for them, especially the kids that are targets of bullying. But without a lot more to say, I'd really like to get to the movie. Welcome, everyone. And afterwards, we have Barbara Coloroso on hand, and she's going to answer questions that might come up. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can chat me directly. And Barbara and I will come on after the film and answer any questions and be available to do that for you. So without anything else, we'll start the film. Thank you so much. Hi there. Thank you for staying with us. I know that's a tough watch. I got a couple texts during the movie. Thank you guys for sticking it out. I think it's a very powerful film. But I want to introduce to you Barbara Coloroso. Barbara is an educational consultant, best-selling author, as well as a BRRC board member. We're thrilled to have her with us tonight. And I didn't see too many questions come up in the chat. So if you have them, go ahead and throw them down there, but I'm going to start with one. I wrote down several questions. What is your biggest takeaway from the film, Barbara?
I need to give you a little history here, Drew, and that is that I was actually an expert witness in the Tyler Long case, dealing with the family suing the school system. And it was, and I'd done this before, but it was such an eye-opener about the indifference that the district had and their misunderstanding of what bullying really is. They constantly referred to it as a conflict and as a fight when there was a horrible imbalance of power with them. And I have worked with Lee Hirsch, who actually made the film. He was deeply impacted by it in a way I think he never thought he would be, and as all of us have been. And that's why I feel so strongly about the Bullying Recovery Resource Center, because as you and I both know, those are the issues we deal with every day: the indifference, the failure to see. And I'm an educator, and I watch these educators say things like, well, boys will be boys, girls just want to be mean, the bus is an ugly place to be on, not connecting at all with the pain that these young people are feeling. So I think we have a lot of work to do. The recovery group deals with the kids who have been so relentlessly targeted that they've either attempted suicide and failed at it, or their parents are at their wits' end and they can see it coming because they've gone and gotten these same kinds of responses on a regular basis. And I see young people taking a stand more than I did. So I'm heartened by that, that if we can get our young people to understand that it does truly take one, that you stand up, speak out, step in, do the right thing. And so I spend a lot of my professional work working with young people from the upper grades, elementary grades through high school, talking to them about the connection and how often we hear, well, if he'd have punched him, we could have done something. If they had been assaulted, we could have done something, and we forget, or they've not learned how damaging words can be. Um, the Ethics of Memory is a powerful book that talks about these things, where this man had researched torture and found that people who are physically tortured have the pain of the injury and the pain of the insult, but the pain of the physical injury fades. The pain of the humiliation and degradation they felt during the physical torture never went away. And so they did the same research on verbal torture and social isolation, not having friends and the like, and found the pain of the actual incident faded, but the pain of the insult itself, the humiliation and degradation, was the same as had they been physically targeted. And I think that's a message we need to get across uh, to school districts, that it isn't just the physical pain that we have to witness to know that a child has been truly damaged. The young girl who struck back didn't harm anybody, but pulled a gun. And we have cases in our state right now where
Yes.
kids have fought back because they couldn't take it anymore. And the place we had sent them to daily as parents in absence, which is what we as educators are given the job to do, did not stand up for them, did not do anything, or wrote it off, or said, as the one boy experienced, well, you didn't shake his hand, so you're just like him. No,
No.
not at all. And so it's an understanding that bullying is not a conflict to be resolved. It has to be stopped. We have to hold the people accountable who have done it. And not just, well, I talked to them, but truly held accountable through restorative practices. We have to make sure the target is kept safe and is taught ways that they can work against bullying. For instance, the 4 antidotes: to have a strong sense of self. It's hard to do when you're being beaten down. To be a good friend, but it's impossible to be a good friend. You saw in each one of these young people a deep caring and a sensitivity, and yet they were the ones who were targeted. It's often that those who are deeply caring human beings, kind, caring, are the ones that are targeted. And they had that gift, but to be a friend, you have to have a friend. It's a mutual thing. So even starting with buddies in the schools, coming together, the young girl said, if I didn't have those other people around me, I don't think I could have made it. So a strong sense of self, being a friend, having friends, and knowing when to get into a group and how to get out. And those are skills we need to teach all of our young people, because that will enable, as Tyler Long's parents, Tina and David, had said, if somebody would have stood up for him, if somebody had stood by him, he would still be here.
Right.
And so I think those are the kinds of messages I take in it. It even furthers my resolve, as sad as the movie is and as angry as we can get. But that anger, there is a good anger. There's good that can come out of our anger if we act on it. And that's why I think the Bullying Recovery Center is so important. But we also have to come in on the front end and make a more concerted effort on educating the school systems
Yes.
and demanding that they have what I call the 3 Ps: strong anti-bullying policies, where they all understand what bullying really is,
Yes.
Strong
everyone.
anti-bullying procedures in place. What do you do with the kids who have been targeting others and
Mhm.
they're not so innocent bystanders who either joined in or stood by? And then how are we going to keep the targeted kids safe? And how do we reinforce and celebrate those who have taken a stand, who have stood up? And then last is the three P's is to have programs. And I'm not talking anti-bullying programs. I'm not a real fan of those.
I'm
Drop
not
it in,
either.
oh, we've done it. It's programs that teach kids to care more deeply and share more generously and help more willingly, which are truly the antidotes to hating and hoarding and harming, the three most virulent agents ripping apart the fabric of our humanity today. And I think Lee has, touched us all with
Yes.
the different scenarios because we've seen kids reach an end where they couldn't take it anymore and killed themselves. Those who have struck back and those who have gone into themselves and started beating themselves up.
Right.
And if anything, if it can energize us to take that anger, um, the calming the rage that we feel, but in calming that rage, use that anger for good.
Absolutely. Hey, Dory, if you could you put your class in the chat if anybody's interested? Dory is part of something called Peers, and she's going to be hosting a bully proofing workshop. Tom and I, Tom's my husband and co-founder, we have been to it. It's incredible. And it talks about a lot of things that Barbara was talking about for kids to build up those skills to take care of themselves and to be less of a target. So, and you can also contact me as well. I have some information on it, and we could possibly offer you a reduced rate for you and your child. It's for both parent and child to attend.
And I might add to that, I have seen many a targeted kid given the right support, like the recovery center does,
Mhm.
for them to turn into powerful witnesses for other young people um,
Absolutely.
and become great leaders themselves in that sense of saying, no more, not here, never. This is mean and cruel and has to stop.
So it kind of brings me to another question. What is the top thing you'd recommend to a parent? We saw some not so great parenting in this, but if you find out your child's been bullied, what would you tell a parent to do right off the bat?
Um, what I'm going to say, what not to do first.
Great.
Don't minimize, rationalize, or explain it away. Oh, boys will be boys, girls just want to be mean, or, I don't think he really meant that, or she was really flirting with you, or he was trying to be your friend. Don't do that. What you have to say is, I hear you. I'm here for you. I believe you. Bullies try to get the target not to be believed. They're the ones who say, he was mean to me. He did it to me first, kind of thing. No, I hear you. I'm here for you. I believe you. And most importantly, you're not in this alone. Because the two
Mhm.
things that bullies want to do is isolate the child and make him not believed. And so we want to say that. The next thing you want to say is, it's not your fault.
Right.
Um, you are the target. Yes, your child might be weird, dorky, odd, strange, have ADHD, Asperger's, miss social cues, but nothing ever justifies mean nothing. So it's not your fault. The next thing I say to young people is there are things you can do. And I talk to them about the posture they hold, the sense of well-being that they can have in that strong sense of self, and trying to make sure that there's a buddy they can hang with.
Yeah.
Whether I, as an educator, assign someone who's a leader in the school and has empathy and is willing to be there as a buddy, or if there are other kids that will hang with them, to be willing to strengthen that bond. And
Mhm.
then we have to tell someone, and someone who cares. And if the first people you tell in the school don't get it, then you keep going up the chain and don't feel that you're, often parents of targeted kids are very caring, sensitive human beings too, in that you can say to the school, if these things are not done, then this is where I'm going.
Mm.
And if it's bordering on a crime, we say the police, and the police often have their hands tied in this regard. But the Office of Civil Rights is a powerful place to go. And I would invite each one of you, if you went to my website, I have a free 65-page pamphlet
Yeah.
on bullying that talks to educators about what they can do. But I also have a section in there on what parents can do if nothing's getting done in their child's school. Uh, for the legal recourse is one of the last. uh, it's
Yeah.
a long, and it often uh, takes so long to get done, but it is a tool to use. I'm not saying it's not, but if we can stop it way before we need that, that's what we need. Less damage to the
Mhm.
kid. The child is empowered, seeing that we have adults standing by me, I have other peers standing by me. It's so sad to see all these kids gathering for these vigils
Yeah.
and standing by now when they were needed to stand by much earlier. So to encourage the young people to stand up, speak out, step in, and do the right thing. You have to teach
Absolutely.
them how to do that.
Yeah. Looks like there is a couple questions. So Dory was asking, what do parents do if an adult or teacher that started the bullying and the kids take their cue from the teacher?
Oh, we have this idea that bullying is just kid stuff.
Right.
Teachers bully too. And certainly not every teacher. We've got some great educators.
Yes.
But when a teacher bullies, it gives the others permission to be mean and cruel to that child. And if your
Yeah.
child has been targeted by a teacher, that's where you have to support the child. I hear you, I'm here for you, I believe you, you're not in this alone. And we are going to take care of this. Many kids don't want to tell you because they're afraid of retaliation.
Right. Right.
And we have to be assured when we go to that school that there will not be retaliation against my child for my coming and saying, and first of all, you don't, and often we tell, well, go where the problem is first, and go to the teacher. If there's a conflict, you do that. If it's bullying, no.
Right.
You go to the administration. You say, but I've gone over their head. Well, they were the mean and cruel person, and you cannot have a conversation with them. The administration needs to stop it to
Right.
make sure that that teacher is held accountable. Um, and then I want the child to be able to stand up and speak out, and that will get the teacher's ire. But if the administration knows that the teacher has targeted a student and the other kids are joining in, and that child stands up and speaks out, um, and gets sent down to the principal's office for doing that, the administration then knows there is this serious problem here. Um, and I could give you stories
Yes.
about young kids who have stood up and ended up kicked out of the class, but the administration knew and then could nail the teacher on it
Yes.
because we have this idea only kids can bully. No, we can have bullying in politics. We can have bullying in
Yeah.
the neighborhood co-op. We can have bullying in our churches. And so we've got to be aware. Bullying is a sense of contempt for another human being. And once I have you in contempt, I can do anything to you and not feel shame or compassion. You saw that with that principal. She had no compassion
Right.
for the kids who had been targeted. In fact, very often the target is then blamed. So it's not easy when it is a teacher, but I think we have a powerful voice. And if the kid is older, for them to stand up and speak out. Now, I want to teach the kid how to do it in an assertive way, not aggressive or not passive. That young girl that ended up in juvie, I worked at the University of Northern Colorado demonstration school, and in order to get into our program, you had to have killed somebody or seriously hurt someone, including yourself. And I had one boy who was there because he was defending his cousin. And he was the easiest to work with because he was standing up for a cousin that was being killed. And so what he'd done is shot his uncle, because he thought he was going to kill the cousin, and indeed he would have. Now the others all had to deal with the fact, there was only one that had serious mental issues, but the others truly had struck back, and that's why they were in juvie hall. They had struck back in anger and in pain, because of what was done to them. And we have to tune into that. Obviously, in that one situation with the girl, charges were dropped. Somebody saw the light.
Yeah.
And I'm actually kind of glad that they held her for a while in a healthy unit where she could begin to believe that, she had an issue with what she had done and she was held accountable for it, but that she was a decent, caring human being and had struck back.
Yeah.
So you could see that, and that kind of thing happening. It should have happened much sooner in the front end before she felt she had no other recourse.
Agreed. We've got we have a high school student on here, and she's saying that the schools over here have made a policy that they may not share with the bully who reported them, but some teachers have shared this. What should be done?
They have shared who it was. We have a state law. We have a state law that says that, if let's say one of the witnesses, a brave-hearted kid, an upstander, reports the bullying being done, we have a legal obligation as educators to protect the child who stood up and reported the bullying, even if it's the target who reported the bullying. Give an example. I was at Woodstock in India, and they had an issue where kids were leaving the school but not saying why. The parents didn't say anything. They just pulled them out of the school. And one day the school counselor was walking down the hallway, and it was a boarding school, and a young student brushed against the counselor, knocked his books out of his hand, which was totally out of character. And when he leaned over to help the counselor pick up the books, he handed him a flash drive.
Mm.
The counselor went and looked at the flash drive and saw in the dorm some really powerful, politically connected kids had created a quote unquote fight club, and kids were being horribly beaten. Now, the counselor went to one of the lead bullies and said, I happened to see on YouTube that you were fighting. But what he had done was protected the kid who gave him the flash drive and said, I saw it. Well, what are you doing? Well, I regularly look it over to see. So he protected the other boy because no one would come forward because they were afraid of the retaliation. And it's a real fear. But we now have in our state a powerful law that says you have to protect the kid, even if it's the target now becoming his own or her own witness.
Mhm. Excellent. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Um, Barbara, thank you so much. And thank you,
Oh, thank
everyone.
you.
If your child is being bullied, this is our phone number and our website. Um, we have experience doing this. We can help. We have some ideas for you. A lot of the things that Barbara discussed, we can talk to you about as well. There's ways to talk to administrators and school officials about bullying. Um, we are not a 9 to 5 organization. If you need to talk on the weekend, a holiday, or an evening, you can call us. Thank you for joining us.